For years, we've heard the phrase, the modern audience. Studios talk about them, journalists talk about them, creators blame them when their projects fail, and credit them when their projects succeed. But who exactly is the modern audience everyone keeps talking about? Welcome back to Catalyst Corner. I'm Evan.
I'm Jim.
We talk pop culture, fandoms, and the business behind them. Not all hype, not all hate, just honest takes. We run a small creative business, so we're not just fans, we're watching how the machine actually works. So let's get into the breakdown. The title of this breakdown is Who is the Real Modern Audience? Because the reason I wanted to talk about this today is I saw a movie this last weekend.
Okay.
And I loved it.
Okay.
And I'll get into that in the watch list.
All right.
But people didn't really turn out for it.
Sure.
So it got me thinking, clearly I'm not the modern audience. So who actually is it? So I think the first point of this is part of identifying who the modern audience is. The modern audience has more choices than any other audience in the history of cinema.
Sure, absolutely.
20 years ago, you had movie theaters, which is where you'd catch your new stuff.
Right.
You had cable TV, which is where, you get relatively old movies. Right? And then if you wanted to upgrade to the premium package, you could get like an HBO or a Showtime or whatever.
Right.
And get newer movies, but they still weren't fresh.
And some new shows and what have you. Yeah.
They still weren't really fresh.
Right.
You had DVDs, so you
could months after the movie came out.
So anywhere from 5 to 8 months after the movie came out, it'd come out on DVD. You'd see a bump in sales there, and then a couple months after the DVD release, it would end up on HBO, and maybe a year after that, it would end up on regular cable.
Right.
And then you had video games, right? Today, you're competing against streaming services, social media.
Yep.
The big hitter, which is YouTube.
Oh, yeah, big recently.
Yeah, I mean, over the last, 5 to 10 years, YouTube has become the platform for content consumption and content generation.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the last, 2 to 3 years, content creation in a theatrical way from YouTube has really exploded.
And we're kind of seeing that bleed into Hollywood a little bit.
Right.
With the success of like Obsession and Backrooms. I mean, those guys started on YouTube. That are making those movies.
Right.
And, even with Backrooms, that was a internet property that's kind of manifested into a Hollywood success story.
Yep.
You have gaming now, which you had gaming back then, but gaming now is a different animal.
It's not even close to the same with the systems. I mean, you had like a couple systems back in the day.
You had your Xbox and you had your PlayStation 2 and everything and all that. But gaming today is I read an article the other day that said 70% of adults in the U.S. spend at least 1 hour a week gaming.
Sure.
That's a huge number. And then, over the last 3 years, you have TikTok.
Right.
Which is short form and is pulling in numbers that, YouTube in its infancy only could have hoped for.
Sure.
So every piece of entertainment is fighting for attention. Right?
Yes. Right. Absolutely.
So part of that modern audience thing is it's not that they're harder to please because they're a different generation or they're different people. They're harder to please because they're drowning in options.
Oh yeah, that's a big piece of it for sure. I mean, the thing is that but that being said, it also is, part of it is generational where things do not pass down more recently from generation to generation. Like, before it became a thing, right? Generations would go together and be entertained by the same thing. And for the last few generations, it's like, no. I don't want your thing. I want my thing. And it's it's only for those, the older generations are no longer passing it down. It's staying with the older generations, and the younger generations are like, we're good. We have our own stuff. So that's part of it too. Is it's harder to continue going down the legacy chain, because it's stopping.
Is part of that the fact that when it was passed down from maybe your generation to my generation type of thing, right? We had less content. There was less options available.
Oh, sure. That's definitely a big reason for it. You had there's only limited things that you can glom onto.
Right? So, I mean, something that was a banger in the 70s or the 80s is still going to have that kind of weight in the 90s and the early 2000s because the options were limited.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's no, I'm good. I'll go on YouTube. I'll go on TikTok. Like, I have my artists. I like what I like. So there's just, I don't know that the properties are so much weaker. It's just that you're competing against so much more at this point.
Well, you know what it is, too, is the gatekeeping of Hollywood has been broken open, because they would never, years ago, allowed YouTube or internet platform creators to all of a sudden have big theatrical releases. That wasn't going to be allowed.
Yeah, but
they can't gatekeep that anymore.
They can't. But it was interesting to see, and I use Obsession in the Backrooms as the most recent success. You also had like Talk to Me back then and everything.
You also have the Digital Circus, which is kicking Star Wars ass.
Right, blowing it out of the water. But when Obsession and when even more so the Backrooms came out, they ran a smear campaign against the director.
Of course,
they're like, "Oh, he's 20 years old. He was a fan. He had a ghost director," and it's like, no, the kid knew what he was fucking doing.
Well, you know who his dad is?
No, who's his dad?
The kid who did Obsession. Right, that's Barker's kid, right?
Right. So I mean, like, you're around it anyway.
So well, my point being is, even though he's a YouTube, let's not pretend like this kid didn't know what he was doing per se.
Yeah, but they ran that smear campaign,
right, because of his age. And they're saying, well, he's unqualified, and it's like, well,
it's partly his age, and it's partly because he made his stones on YouTube, and they think that's a lesser art form, which it's not.
Not anymore. It's not.
The numbers are showing that it's not a lesser art form.
No. They just refuse to look at the data and admit the defeat that Hollywood has succumbed to, which is that they are not. They're not the golden child anymore.
No, the golden goose is dead.
Oh, long dead. Long dead.
And, that's not to say that with all of the old money that sits in there and the skill sets of the people that are involved in it and, the backing that old Hollywood has, that they still can't produce competitive
Oh, of course
product.
They can.
But the problem is that as technology grows and becomes more advanced and filmmaking becomes more attainable, you get voices that would have never had a chance to have been heard showing up and releasing stuff that Hollywood couldn't even fathom being a success.
Well, the problem is that because you have the ability to circumvent Hollywood, you can circumvent the rules of Hollywood. And again, if you are out to make a great movie that you don't have that you're not concerned about trophies, you're concerned about putting out a great movie for the audience, then it doesn't matter all the check boxes, the roadblocks, all the things that Hollywood puts in place. They don't have to adhere to those rules, and they don't adhere to those rules, and they're having tremendous success. And Hollywood's saying, but you can't do that. And it's like, and they're saying, go fuck yourself, Hollywood. You're not in charge anymore. You're another piece of the machine. You're not the owner of the machine anymore. And they can't wrap their head around that.
No, they're struggling for sure.
Very big time.
So the second point for the modern audience is what matters has shifted too. So in old school Hollywood, box office numbers was the most important thing, right? How much does a movie make versus how much did it cost?
Right.
Can we get toy sales out of it? Can we do spin-offs, etc.? And that still all matters today.
Sure.
But the real and true currency now is attention.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, studios often talk about ticket sales, but the real battle is for the audience's attention, right? Movies aren't competing against other movies anymore. They're competing against Netflix series. Right? Which there are some bangers that are out there. You can't, Netflix, even though it's past its prime, is still is a huge hitter against the Hollywood industry.
I still say Frankenstein last year was the best movie to come out.
And that's directly out of Netflix.
Right. And that did not hit the movie theater.
I think they did like a limited, like a 3-day run or something.
Yeah,
but
something
it wasn't
minor.
But that's the thing.
Not all areas either.
Netflix has grown to what it is, right? This behemoth of a company without releasing in theaters. So box office was never about box office for them.
Right.
There's the YouTube rabbit hole, right? I mean, you get sucked into YouTube and 3 hours go by and you don't even realize it.
Easy.
Video games are just as cinematic as movies now.
I mean, video games now are a movie you get to play.
And I would go even further and say that their production value is as much or more than some of these movies that are coming out.
I mean, there are people that, and you know this better than me, that just sit and watch video games.
Oh, there's guys that their whole career is they just play the latest game. There are some guys out there that don't even comment on it. They just play the game, record themselves playing it. They don't even have their face on it. It's just so the audience can watch the game through.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like that's like watching television. So again, that is a massive audience there.
It's one of those things where Hollywood always treated those properties as, sort of Hollywood is the buffalo and it's swatting the flies away, which are these other components, right? But the attention span has evolved. Audiences have shorter attention spans via TikTok, right? They want to consume short form content.
Oh, yeah.
They're willing to consume long-form content. However, a lot of that long-form content they're going to consume on either YouTube or a streaming service, whether it's Netflix or HBO Max or whatever.
For sure.
And if they want sort of a medium middle ground, they'll go on YouTube. Like there's not that room for Hollywood to put out an hour and a half, a 2-hour movie and expect to do $1 billion again. And we've seen the box office shrink since COVID. Pre-COVID, almost every fucking movie was doing. The low tier movies were doing 300 million. The mid tier movies were doing 700 or 800 million, and the big budgets were doing over $1 billion every single time.
Because you didn't have other options.
Every single time. Now, you're lucky if a big budget clears 500 or 600 million.
You're lucky. You're a success. If you can get over 600 million now, that's a success, because that is a hard thing to do for movies that in 2019 would have no trouble clearing that. Right,
and they do. There are outliers.
Sure,
right? Of course, there are outliers. Every now and then, either Disney or Pixar will drop a kids movie that'll do $1 billion.
You're always going to get those. They're just fewer and farther between.
But the true successes now are these micro-budget movies, Obsession, Backrooms, $5 million, $750,000 budgets.
Backrooms and Obsession cost $11 million in total combined to make, and have made what?
Three or
400 million, right? So, I mean, yeah, you can, again.
But that goes to show
it's
you
not
that
the big budget movie. You can't make it for that cheap, but you can make a movie for that cheap that's quality.
But I think part of that goes to show you that if Hollywood's willing to evolve, right, and accept that properties that start on the internet can be made into, and these aren't isolated incidents. We have Has Been Hotel, which is a huge success, picked up by Amazon, right?
Right.
So, and Digital Circus again. Right. So these properties that they're pulling from online, they're turning into these insane hits.
Right.
And the legacy properties, it seems like, are falling behind.
Right, because if you want to say, the modern audience, those are the shows that are being watched online. And that audience, because it's their properties that they are growing up with, that their groups and cliques watch and talk about, will, if it goes to the movie theater, will follow it to the movie theater to support it because it's their thing. But it's not the legacy IPs. They're not going to, that modern audience they're looking for isn't looking for them. And that's where the big disconnect comes from, because they think the modern audience is going to generationally keep on producing fans, and that stopped years ago. And the other half of that is, and I think we're kind of seeing this now, is that even legacy properties done right aren't generating the sort of revenue that you get from versus appealing to the internet crowd. Right. And it goes back to something we've talked about previously, is it's if I wait 2 months, it's going to come on to the streaming service I'm already paying for. Therefore, why should I pay to go see it in the movie theater? I've already prepaid to watch this movie when it comes on streaming.
Right. Mortal Kombat 2 is out on streaming.
Is
now.
It already?
It's on POV right now.
Okay,
but it's coming on demand. I think HBO is going to get it first because it's Warner Brothers.
Right.
But that's less. That's what, like 3 months, maybe max.
Yeah.
Max. So, part of that attention is currency. Is the biggest competitors in Hollywood aren't the studios competing against each other. It's the studios competing against distraction, basically.
Right. You know what Hollywood's biggest problem is? They looked behind them, and in the far, far distance, they saw gaming, they saw YouTube, they saw streaming, and they're like, they'll never catch up. And then they turned around again, and it was closer, and they still And then they turned around again, and it was right behind them, and they never once took it seriously. And then now they're looking forward to those things, and they don't know why. They don't understand what happened. And it's like, because you never took it seriously, and because you never adjusted, you never pivoted, you are now surpassed. And that's on you, Hollywood, for being so stuck in your ways and thinking that you would never, ever be usurped, but you have been.
Right. It's almost an apathy on their part.
Right.
Ultimately they were so secure in what they were doing. It was so unobtainable to make anything, even 5 or 10 years ago, that they sort of allowed apathy to set in and did nothing to revolutionize modern Hollywood.
Right. And, and they're so heads up their ass, thinking of how self-important they are, thinking, celebrities are so glamorous and so loved. And all of a sudden, it's like, well, no, some guy in his basement is now just as popular as you are and has got a bigger movie out than you. Because, no, you're nothing. You're just, you're paid to pretend. That person can get paid to pretend just as easily and produce a more quality product. You're nothing special anymore.
Even taking that further, some of even just the talking heads have 2, 3, 10 million followers on platforms.
Sure.
That's just as much attention as any celebrity would hope to get.
Absolutely.
So when you can get your celebrity fix from, say, YouTube, I mean, there's not room for that old school glam celebrity style. Like you see it, you see how unimportant the modern audience values Hollywood. Just look at the Oscars.
Right.
Every year it's 20-30% less watch than the year before.
Yeah.
Because you have the old crowd that still cares about it dying out.
Right.
And the new crowd doesn't care.
And one of the big differences is the YouTuber who has the same amount of fans cares about those fans. The Hollywood, they don't give a fuck about you. They just collect you like they do anything else. But the YouTubers and the platform people, they actually give a shit. And that's why their support is so much greater. Because those people are accessible. Those people care about the product that they're making, and they care about the support they're receiving, and they understand it and they cherish it. Whereas Hollywood doesn't give two fucks about you unless you pay them to give a shit about you. And even then they don't.
So the third point, and this is the controversial point of this topic, is audiences care more about good characters than they do identity. So this is where a lot of the toxic online debates happen.
Absolutely.
When a character's race swapped or a character's gender swapped, discussion becomes incredibly polarized.
Yep.
Go with some examples, right?
Yep.
Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Right? You had people up in arms over Ariel. Velma.
Yep.
That caught a lot of heat. Ghostbusters.
Yep.
That caught a lot of heat. What do you got? You got any?
Yeah. Well, so
I mean, Snape.
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? Let me give you an example, and this is where it becomes the issue for me, right? And let me give you a few. So, Lupita Nyong'o cast as Helen of Troy in the Odyssey coming out, right? Obviously, she's a black woman. Does that matter to you?
To me?
Yeah, I'm just saying. Do you care that she's cast as Helen of Troy?
No.
Let me ask you this way. Do you care if she's a black woman who is just playing the character completely as the character should be from the book? Would that bother you?
Nope, not even a little bit.
Would you care if she's African and talks only about African roots?
Yes.
That's where the problem lies. It doesn't matter that she's black. If she's dark-skinned Greek playing a Greek goddess to the letter of the book, who gives a shit? If you change it where she's African and you're changing her heritage and you're adding in all this other racial shit, that's where it becomes problematic. You have a right to be upset then. But if she's just a black woman playing a Greek woman and she's playing it completely to the way it's supposed to be, who cares? That's not a problem. Right.
So the reality of the gender swap, race swap issue, it is complicated, right?
Right.
You have some audience members that object because they feel existing characters are just being changed. If you race swap or gender swap, that's a big enough change for them. Then you also have a toxic side of that with racism.
Right.
Right? Others have no issue, like you or I.
Right.
But we care whether the story is good and the characters are actually representing the characters they're supposed to be portraying.
That's what matters. That's what matters the most, is if you change the character and thus have to rewrite the story, then you did it for the then you cast that person for all the wrong reasons, because that's not, hey, I'm just making the best selection. What does it matter? Again, and we've talked about this 100 times. If Rachel Zegler played Snow White as Snow White and you didn't make all those ridiculous changes, no one would have had a problem that she was Latina.
Well,
I mean, some not. Of course, some would, but you know what I'm saying,
right. And so taking the sort of the racist element out of it, right? Because there's always going to be shitheads that if it's the wrong shade, it's the wrong character, which is bullshit.
Yeah,
right.
There's always going to be that element.
Right. You're never going to get rid of that.
No.
And a lot of times they're very vocal, but they're pretty easy to weed out.
Sure.
Because it's a straw man argument.
Right. That's exactly it.
So, taking that element out of it, diving into sort of Snow White a little bit, I think that what really hurt Rachel Zegler was, one, the fact that Disney made so many changes to the original story. And what really hurt her was her giving those interviews.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, she absolutely destroyed that project. But the point that we're trying to make here is that the race swap, it's in and of itself, shouldn't have been very controversial at all.
If Disney had stuck to the script, right, and her PR team wrangled her in, so she just came across as everybody's favorite new star, I think Snow White would have done banger numbers.
It would have done better. It would have done Little Mermaid numbers at worst.
Little Mermaid at worst.
Yeah.
Which, Little Mermaid,
which didn't do well either, but it still did like 300 million more than Snow White.
Right. But, again, aside from the very vocal racist side, nobody was complaining about Halle Berry as Ariel.
No. I mean, why should you? I mean,
she played Ariel as Ariel.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
That was no issue there.
But all right, but here's another one, right?
Sure.
I'm sticking with the Odyssey on this one.
Okay.
Elliot Page as, is it Achilles?
Achilles,
right?
Yeah.
You got a problem with that?
So that's interesting that you bring up Elliot Page as Achilles, because my initial reaction when I heard the casting was, what the fuck, right? And then I did a little bit of research into how Achilles is portrayed, and I was like, oh, okay. So I'm curious to see the performance.
Yeah.
But if it's a true representation of Achilles, no, I don't give a shit.
The problem I have, though, is it's tough for me to picture Achilles at 5'1", 90 pounds.
Sure, I think the height thing is an issue.
So,
but they do portray Achilles as kind of, a lanky sort of, not to be crude or anything,
but I'm basing
on Brad Pitt's Achilles.
Well, Brad Pitt's Achilles, true. But what I'm saying is, my issue is, does Elliot Page match the physical requirement? And that's debatable, but that's my issue. That's the only issue I have with Elliot Page being cast, is physically, is it going to work? Not acting, not that this is a trans person. Physically, Is it going to work? I'm not 100% sold, but that's my reservation. That's as deep as it goes.
So I think it'll really depend because again, Achilles, as far as his representation in the Odyssey, is not the same as his representation in the Iliad, right?
Right.
So he's already dead at this point.
Yeah.
So this is going to be I don't really know what we're getting out of Achilles in this.
It may be flashbacks and things of that nature.
It could be a ghost, things like that. I think, if you're asking me, I would have more reservations if they were doing like an Iliad or a remake of Troy.
Yeah.
And they cast Elliot Page. But
that's a valid debate to have, right? And one we've talked about off air, and I'm going to bring it on to air right now, is the rumor casting of Cynthia Erivo as Storm, right? Again, physically, it doesn't work for me.
Right, because Storm is supposed to be tall
and muscular.
Right.
And when you're 5'1", 70 pounds, you can't portray Storm in an accurate manner. But that's a valid debate to have. You can say, and there is nothing racist, there is nothing sexist, there is nothing homophobic, transphobic, none of that. That is a real honest debate that you can have.
Because here's the thing. If Cynthia Erivo was 5'9", and like 145 pounds of pure muscle, fucking yeah.
If Cynthia Erivo looked like Halle Berry, then fine.
Right.
Then fine. But because she doesn't, because she's so much smaller than that, and even Halle Berry didn't really portray Storm, physically well, but it was good enough.
Right, it was passable.
Right, and I would say the same thing with Cynthia Erivo. If she was the same physical dimensions, it would be passable. I'd still want something else, but it'd be passable. But the way she looks, current day, even if she bulks up some, I can't see much.
She looks emaciated.
Right, like that can't be Storm. So casting matters, but it has to actually matter. Like, there's got to be depth to your argument, not just that person's supposed to be white, therefore that's a horrible choice and I'm not watching it and this movie sucks and go fuck yourself, everybody. Like, that's just being a rage baiter
or being racist.
Or being racist. Right.
Right, it's really tricky, and I know we harp on Snape a lot, right? But when the show comes out in December or whenever it's coming out, I mean, if they nail it, they nail it.
Right.
I mean, that's it. Like, it's not us sitting there going, "Oh man, I don't want my Snape to be black." No, I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I really don't. As long as he's Snape.
Right, as long as you don't change the story of Snape.
But the minute he's not Snape,
right,
is when you lose me.
Right. But if you have to rewrite the story just to fit your casting choice, that is done for the wrong reason.
But it's the same, like, to kind of go back to the other examples, right? It's the same kind of shit that happened with Velma. Right? Nobody cared that Velma was brown.
No.
Except they made 90% of that show about identity politics.
Right.
And as someone that grew up with Scooby-Doo, right? Who's a millennial, who's ultimately the target audience for that property, I want to watch them solve fucking mysteries.
Right.
Like, I don't want them to, take on gender identity or feminine agenda or toxic masculine. I want to watch them fucking get chased around.
And it was just all cringe dialogue with cringe jokes, and it hit for no one. It was made for one person, and that's it. And it flopped, horrifically because it was made for all the wrong reasons.
Right. It's not like the feminists showed up. It's not like the LGBTQ community showed up for that. It was like all of us were collectively cringing at that because all we want out of Scooby-Doo is hijinks and
eat a lot of food and have hijinks.
Right, have hijinks and get chased by fucking old
and
old
then
bastards in masks.
Yeah, unmask them and say who that really was.
Right, Mr.
That's
Jenkins.
It. Yeah.
Like,
there you go.
That's all you got to do. It's an easy formula.
Right.
But you turned it into something that it wasn't.
It's a formula that's worked for 50-odd years up until you bastardized it.
I would go even further and say, casting of Yennefer for The Witcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody gave a shit that she was Indian. Nobody cared about that.
I wouldn't even have known unless you told me.
Nobody cared. Nobody cared. It wasn't.
Right. No one cared.
It wasn't. Oh, this is bad because she's Indian. It was. This is bad because you're bastardizing the source material.
Right. That's what people cared about. And again, but you can't classify everybody as racist or homophobic if they have legitimate gripes with what you've done.
And you can't shut down conversation around that by throwing out those terms either because there are fair criticisms.
Right.
And there are unfair criticisms, right?
Sure.
Totally.
Right. And again, you can defend and you should defend the unfair. Look, if it's racism to be racist, then call that shit out. But that's a small minority. That's not if your property bombs, very little has to do with the actual racists. You know what I mean? Like,
because they're probably not going anyway.
No, right. They're not gonna. They wouldn't have gone. They're not spending the money. You didn't. So again, and if they are racist, no one's listening to racists just be outright racist. So the people who are choosing to not go, they have fair, actual criticism, and you just lump it together like, well, nope, toxic, don't want to hear it. It wasn't us. It was you people. You people are the ones to blame, not us. We made a great movie, flawless. Nothing we did was wrong. Nothing. We're above reproach. And if you say otherwise, well, we're just gonna keep on labeling you. How is that fair for anybody?
But here's another perfect example, and this stretches way back, right? James Bond.
Yep.
You had M. When Sean Connery was James Bond, M was a man, right? And then M was a man, and M was a man, and M was a man, and then you had M as a female. And nobody gave a fuck because she played M perfectly.
Right. What's her name?
Judi Dench. Played it perfect.
Ma'am, what is it?
Dame Judi Dench.
Dame Judy. But that, again, right? That's quality. That's a quality.
Right, but that's the point. Is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you do a gender swap there, as long as it's still fucking M.
Right. You played it
and the
perfectly.
Most recent one, they swapped it back to a male, and no issues either. Like none of us have issues with that. And then in the game that just came out, which I would argue is as good as any James Bond movie, she's a female again. But she plays M as M. Who fucking cares?
Right. That's
no issue.
Right, but that is the key that we've been harping on for the last 5 years of doing this podcast, is that it doesn't matter. If you're true to the character and you stick to the story, then you can weed out all that garbage, but you're still going to have tremendous success. Yeah, you're going to hear a little bit of online discourse, but you have to expect that. You're never going to get away from it totally.
But there's always going to be that element, right? And there always was that element,
of course.
And it's just something that you can't escape from,
right?
But instead of realizing that, hey, that element's always been there, because there were fucking shitheads that were like, oh no, I don't like M as a female. Like, there's always shitheads.
Yeah,
right?
you're always going to have that.
But instead of realizing that the number of shitheads hasn't gone up, however, more people are taking issue with certain casting choices because they ruin a character or rewrite a story.
Right.
And lumping them in with the shitheads is going to turn non-shitheads against you because I didn't like the story and now you're calling me sexist or racist or a misogynist. Fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you. Keep your properties. Yeah. I'm good.
And the thing is, you are to blame because you chose, again, you chose to make that casting choice, and that's fine. But you chose to make that casting choice, and then you had to redo the story and ruin it. And the problem is, when you put out a horrible product, people are going to point to the denominator of, had you not done that, that wouldn't have happened.
Here's an example to bring it back to Snape, right? At its best, if Papa is good, right? He's just another element of this show. At its worst, it could tank the whole show.
Right. Exactly. It's how you write this character based upon who you cast. It's now how you write this character. And how you write it could either make it a big success or make it a gigantic flop. That's on you, though.
Yeah, but I would argue that the risk reward is skewed there because at its best, right, if they nail it and he is just Snape, right, he plays Snape, they don't change any of Snape's backstory, they don't change any of it, they don't lean into any racism. James was a bully to Snape regardless. It had nothing to do with the color of his skin.
Right.
Like, it just is what it is. That's how it's written, that's how the story goes.
Yep.
That's what we're going to commit to, right? That's at its best.
Right.
Right? That doesn't make the show. That's just an element of the show, right?
Right.
At its worst, though, that can tank the show.
Right.
So the risk reward there is not, well, this will either make the show or break the show. It's this will either be an interesting part of the show, and he's a compelling Snape, and he plays the character right, and we love him as much as Alan Rickman, right? It's either that or it blows up the whole fucking show because you change everything.
Right, because you have to, because again, you also have to change, if you're going to change it, then you're also changing elements of the other characters as well.
To fit the narrative.
Right, to fit the narrative. And now everybody that watches it, like, what the fuck is this? This isn't anything to do either with the book or the original movies. This is trash. Like, what the hell are you even talking about? You've ruined all of these characters because of this.
Right.
And at best, it's going to be, this is just like what I love about Harry Potter.
Or even if it's somehow better, it's still, he's an important character, right? But he's not one of the three kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he's not a main character. He's a very important side character, and he has a lot of weight, and people love Snape, but he's not the three kids.
Yeah.
So that's my point to it, is that the risk reward of making a controversial casting.
Right.
Which, again, in 6 months, you and I may be like, oh, it's not controversial at all. They were right. They nailed it, right? But it's not enough to make the show. He's not big enough to carry the show on his back, right?
Right.
But it would be big enough to tank the show.
Yeah, and I think this is what the Odyssey is up against. I do think that some of that, they are running that risk on that as well. And it's not so much do I think that the movie would flop. I'm not saying that monetarily, but I think there's a chance that it might be one of these where you made a lot of money because people wanted to see it, but people don't like it. And it's like, it's a one and done. You made it and then it's forgotten about and no one gives a shit about it because it wasn't a good movie.
Right.
That you have a risk of that happening with your choices.
Sure. And I mean, you have Christopher Nolan's name on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like having Christopher Nolan's name is going to count for something. Like people will he's one of those directors that people will show up for.
Yeah.
But again, I think if people are like, here's a perfect example for me, right? Like the fact that they went with American accents is very jarring to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm so conditioned to, for fantasy and historical fantasy to have a British accent.
Sure.
So the fact that they threw that out and went with American accents, I'm sitting here going like, oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Like that's a little
risky
odd.
call. That's a risky call, but
right. So taking gender and race out of it, just swapping the accents might be enough to make you go, oh, this is like kind of distracting.
And like I said, it could be what you could be looking at as the next Avatar. It made a lot of money and no one gives a fuck about it. Like once it's done,
sure, but even
people don't care.
Even Cameron recognizes that Avatar is past its peak.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, even there's no Avatar that anybody even talks about. Like it's one of those things where it's probably one of the most profitable trilogies of all time that no one gives a fuck about.
Yeah, because again, like and we've talked about it. The leap in tech for the first one was huge. The leap in tech for the second one was okay. The leap in tech for the third one was negligible.
Right, but it's one of those things.
That's what it was for. Was to know.
But I mean, when
push
you
the technology,
right, but when you talk about, we're still talking about the original Star Wars trilogy. We're still talking about the original trilogy of Indiana Jones.
Right, Lord of the Rings.
20
People
years,
still talk about Lord of the Rings.
20 years from now, we're not going to be talking about Avatar.
No,
it's going to be a footnote, and that's it. And the Odyssey could very well be the same thing. It made a lot of money, and no one gives a shit about it. Or it could be a massive success that stands the test of time. We'll find out soon.
Yeah, and so I think most audiences will accept almost anything as long as the characters and stories work.
Right, and that's really that should be the case. That should be the expectation. Right.
So that's point 3. So point 4 is the modern audience rewards authenticity. And what I mean by that is, so they're incredibly good at spotting when something feels manufactured, right? They don't seem to care about low budgets.
No.
They don't seem to really care about imperfect special effects.
Nope.
They don't seem to care about whether there's a big star or an unknown actor in it.
Nope.
But where they struggle is when something feels cynical, when something feels manufactured, plastic, check marks off of a list, things like that. People don't want these properties, whatever they are, whether they're legacy or whether they're new, they don't want them to feel like products. They want stories. And I think this is the biggest change in entertainment over the last 10 years.
Sure.
Is you used to be able to get away with corporate slop, summer blockbuster, turn your brain off, and that's gone now. And to reiterate, part of the reason that is gone is because if you can't provide them with authenticity, they can go somewhere else and get it.
Right.
The YouTuber that has 1 million followers and started from nothing and is so grateful for every subscription is going to feel a lot more authentic than a $300 million movie for the sake of a $300 million movie.
Right. Well, but, we touched upon it at the beginning, though. We used to not have an option, and it's like, yeah, it may not be the greatest, but what else do I got? This is it. So if I want to be entertained, even minimally, this is what I have to accept. The audience of today, no, they've got multiple choices, and if you don't provide them what they want, there is many other choices to look at that will provide what they want. So you cannot get away with it like you used to be able to get away with, because again, you're not the only game in town anymore, and that's one of the largest changes that have taken effect.
Right, and I would also argue that, years ago, marketing could carry a mediocre movie way further than it can today.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a studio could spend money on advertising and trailers and promotions, and they could manufacture excitement through that.
Right.
And that's much harder today.
Very, very
because,
difficult today.
The internet gives audiences reviews, reactions, clips, leaks, discussions. Like, you can't manufacture excitement anymore because there's just so many voices picking apart properties that, if you have a mediocre or a shit movie, all the marketing in the world isn't gonna, blow it out of the park.
Right. Well, I mean, now you have how many people get early access to see things, and even though there's an embargo, you can still let your feelings be known, right? And that is going to shift opinion. Back before, there might be one person that did, and if you didn't watch that particular TV show, you don't know what, you know what I mean? So
if you didn't watch Siskel and Ebert at the movies, or you had no idea.
Yeah, or, Entertainment Tonight, or you know what I mean? Like, if that wasn't a show you watched, you don't know what to expect other than what the marketing put in front of you. So you have all this built up anticipation waiting to finally see it. Whereas now you can get 30 reviews prior to the movie coming out, and if they all paint a bad picture, now all of a sudden it's like, then I'll just wait till it comes out on streaming. I'm not going to waste my time and money on going to see that if everybody's telling me how terrible it is that have seen it.
And here's where it even gets more complicated, right? Is that modern audiences, it's not that they necessarily agree on what they like. It's not like how it used to be where it's like, we all love Star Wars, right?
Right.
But what the modern audience does agree on is what feels fake, right? So you hear people talk about, it feels like a corporate cop-out. It feels like it was focus grouped to death. It feels like a product. It feels like it was made by a committee, things like that. That's a bad sign, right? When people are saying that type of shit before a movie launches, it's dead in the water.
And they're right, because most of it is done that way nowadays.
Right, and they are right. But again, your audience... What's funny is they want to tell simpler and simpler stories because they want to treat their audience like they've been dumbed down over the years. But the truth of it is their audience is the smartest they've ever been.
Right.
And as soon as the corporate stink whiff hits their noses, you're going to have a problem. You are. And that's why a lot of smaller projects win. There's a passionate fan base behind a lot of smaller, again, backrooms obsession, right? There's a passionate fan base, and they feel like someone that actually wanted to make the film is making it, right? Because it's such a small product. They have a clear voice. They have a clear point of view. They aren't trying to please every demographic simultaneously. And we're seeing the numbers, you know? We are. I mean, whether you want to admit it or not, Backrooms and Obsession back to back blew it out of the water based on their budgets.
But the other thing, too, is they made the movie that they wanted to make. There was no master over them saying, we can't do this, we can't do that, we have to sanitize this. They had a clear vision of what they wanted to make and made that clear vision. And the authenticity of those movies shine through. There is no sanitation. There is no corporate hands in the cookie jar. These movies are made by the people that love the property for the people that love the property. And that's why they're successful.
And that's the problem that a lot of the big studios are facing is... they're chasing everyone.
Right.
And a lot of studios, maybe they're getting the hint at this point, but right now a lot of studios seem to believe the safest path is to make something for everyone.
Right.
And if you look historically at the biggest hits, that's not the case. Pirates of the Caribbean wasn't made for everyone.
Right.
It was made for a very niche audience, right? And it blew up.
Yeah. If you, Chris Gore of Film Threat said many, many years ago, the costliest mistake Disney will ever make is turning Star Wars from a boy brand to a girl brand. And that's exactly what they did. And how many billions in loss are they now? That is the deadest giant IP that you could possibly have, because they couldn't just make it for the audience that wanted it. They had to make it for the audience that didn't.
Right. When you make something for everyone, you make something for no one,
right.
Basically. Or at the very least, you make something that nobody feels passionate about. Passionate fans disconnect, and new fans, at best, are lukewarm to the idea of it.
Right.
The other half of that is the modern audience doesn't just passively watch entertainment anymore. They get on social media, they discuss it on forums, on Reddit forums and things. They critique it, right?
Yep.
And there's a whole economy based on creating content around it now, too, which never existed. So a lot of times you have multiple voices getting on there saying, what was the creator's point to this, right? If they feel the answer is they wanted to tell a great story, they're going to be on board.
Right.
If they feel that the answer is they wanted to hit a demographic, they're not, fuck them.
Right.
Right,
because that's, because that goes to, and especially with the younger kids, who don't, so much like capitalism, so to speak. If you're making it just for the sake of money, then go fuck yourself.
Right. It's interesting. It's the most interesting business to me, because it's the one business where you have two conflicting things, right? Because art is not complementary to capitalism.
No.
Right? But they've been able to bend it sort of in a way that makes it work. But again, when your audience is looking for authenticity, if you don't have that, they're out. And it may start as skepticism, right? For example, Marvel, right? When Marvel first came out, they were making those fucking movies for comic book nerds.
Right.
They weren't making those movies for anybody but for the fucking comic book nerds. They took a risk. They took a risk on Downey. They took a risk on Iron Man. But no one expected it to go the way that it did. I mean, on paper, it doesn't work.
No, but I'm making these movies for the comic book fan in the hopes that other people will find them. And if they don't, they don't. But we're making it for the people that we know will come. And that's who we're catering to. And what happened is all the other people came, and then they started making it for them.
Right. And that's when the skepticism started to bleed in, right? And then after the skepticism comes the turn where it's all of these properties are bad. They can't release anything good.
Right.
Fuck this property. It's dead.
Exactly.
Same thing happened with Star Wars. Same thing happened with Indiana Jones. It's a little more complicated with Indiana Jones because I would argue the skepticism point was when Crystal Skull came out.
Sure. But if you ended it with Crystal Skull, people would be like, yeah, I mean, again, it made a lot of money. Wasn't the greatest movie,
three
but
Indiana Joneses and
cool.
one mediocre one.
Whatever, it is what it is.
And then and here's the thing that's interesting about Indiana Jones. I don't know if you ever ended up watching Dial of Destiny.
I saw some of it. Yeah, I couldn't. I really couldn't stomach the whole thing.
Here's the thing: it's not even that bad of a film, but it's mediocre at best. And it's hard to go from Raiders, Temple, and Last Crusade into Kingdom Skull, where the cracks start to show, and then ultimately to Dial of Destiny, where either if it was a blowout, fine, but anything short of an amazing film is not going to help the franchise.
Right. But here's the thing, going back to what you just said. When it's authentic, when you create art, and we do, we both do it, this is part of our livelihood, we put it out there to put it out there for the people to enjoy. If money comes back from that, great. If we make something with the intent of money being the priority, it's going to go nowhere. Then it's fake. You're just putting out, shit just to put out, right?
But that's the thing, is we see it at the conventions all the time, right? We hand make everything, right? I mean, we have machines and stuff, but
of course.
But that being said, there's a human element and there's a local element to everything we're doing, right? So the difference between us and someone that's buying shit off of Temu to resell to you is that I'm going to sit there and talk to you about the property because I wouldn't make the thing unless I love the property.
Right.
It's not a dollar sign for me. It's something I care about.
And if you care about it, we want to talk to you about it because we have a shared interest. And
we're fans first.
Right. And if we can make some art and make some product and we can get it into your hands, there might be a monetary gain on our side, but ultimately creating the love of the art and the product, that's what it's all about. And that goes back to what I was just going to say about Raiders of the Lost Ark is the art that was put out. Dial of Destiny was money, was just made from, and that's
a cash grab.
Right, that was just a strict cash grab, and that's why it resonated with nobody, because everybody knew how unauthentic it was, and no one wanted it, and it was just made for the sake of trying to make money. That's it. I mean, I'm don't get me wrong. I understand all movies are meant to make money, but you didn't have a reason to make this movie. Like, no one wanted it, and you made a terrible movie that has hurt the legacy and killed this IP.
Well, I would argue that the IP is not dead because they did release The Great Circle.
Sure.
On X,
I mean,
the format has changed, right?
Right.
Like you may have killed the cinematic.
Right. Well,
version of it.
Yeah.
So, to finish this point, modern audience, I think, will forgive bad CGI. Mm-hmm. I think they'll forgive or don't care so much about a low budget. Mm-hmm. I would even argue that they'll forgive mistakes.
Sure.
What they won't forgive is feeling like they're being marketed to instead of being told a story.
Right.
And I think that the only way these big studios are going to right their ship is to get that through their head.
Yep. That's the only thing that's going to save them going forward.
All right. And the last point is the modern audience votes with their time.
Yep.
Right? Studios focus on box office numbers for the most part. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see some shift in that.
Sure.
Some. But the real signal for success is repeat engagement. Is it getting recommended? Are people rewatching it? Are they talking about it months later? Perfect examples for big studio stuff. Top Gun Maverick.
Yep.
Right? Tons of money. People loved it. And they nailed it.
Yeah. And people still bring it up as
every now and then
a movie that, is either A, recommended, or B, one of the last movies they've seen. Like, went out of their way to go see.
Here's another one for a TV show, Shogun.
Yeah, I've heard
Hulu.
nothing about other than great about that. I've never seen it myself,
it's authentic.
But
you have something truly authentic, for the Japanese time period and everything. Mm-hmm. Great actors, and it won a ton of awards.
Yeah.
People are itching for a second season.
Yeah.
Like that's the the future of sort of how people interact with stuff. Is maybe people aren't talking about Shogun today, but you better believe they'll fucking line up if season 2 ends up dropping.
But here's the problem. Shogun was made by Fox prior to the acquisition. Now it's going to be Disney-fied. I don't know if you're going to get a good season 2.
I don't know. I don't know how much creative control the producers and stuff will have in it and everything, especially where it won all the awards.
I just
stuff.
worry about now that Disney has control of it and it has to go through them.
But here's another sort of talking point about the modern audience is they don't have loyalty to franchises anymore.
None.
Every release has to earn their attention.
Mm-hmm. Every release has to earn their attention, and then you have to win it back again if you release a second one. Like there's no built-in loyalty fan base. Like you have to reprove yourself again. Like if Obsession makes a second movie, it better be to the quality and standard of the first movie, or you can't just expect everybody to show up.
Sure, and I think where it becomes sort of where the lines get crossed, right, is that a lot of people when they're polled say that they're looking for original stories, right? But then a lot of times they show up for familiar franchises, sequels, and reboots.
Right.
Now, personally, what I believe is familiar franchises, sequels, and reboots are always going to have that staying power unless you turn it into a product, unless it's just about making money.
Right.
If you're telling a great story in an established IP, people will show up for it. If you're not telling a great story or it feels like a cash grab, and here's the other thing, is that with some of these big IPs, especially Star Wars, for instance, right? Even if tomorrow, right, they dropped the best Star Wars, number 1, beats Empire, right? It's not enough to sweat. It may turn the tables, but people are going to be skeptical going into it because everything Star Wars has done feels like a cash grab.
Right. Well, I mean, again, and that's the hope on Starfighter coming out next year, right? It's an original story, not connected to anything, and they think, hey, we have an opportunity. But the problem is, this is just going to be this could be another Deadpool and Wolverine. Whereas you made money for that one movie, and you've had, 7 flops after that, or however many flops there's been since. It didn't turn the tide. It just was a singular movie that people had interest in. Starfighter may very well be the same thing, because you have Sean Levy, same guy who did that movie, doing this movie, and then he's done. This is it, right? He's not, supposedly not doing anymore. And so if you go back to the same Dave Filoni formula after that, you're going to, you get another Mandalorian and Grogu on your hands.
So the real modern audience isn't defined by age, race, gender, or politics. It's defined by choice.
Mm-hmm.
The more entertainment competing for their attention than any generation before. And if something doesn't connect, then they're gone.
Yep.
And studios keep trying to figure out who these people are. And the answer is pretty simple. People still want the same thing that they've always wanted, and that's great stories.
Yep.
But they're just they're less willing to settle for mediocre content.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's the breakdown. All right, let's move on to off the cuff.
Okay.
I'm going to go.
Go ahead.
I think review scores have lost all meaning.
Well, yeah.
I think review scores have lost all meaning. I think, It's interesting because I'll watch something or play something or whatever, and then after I've consumed it is when I'll go look at the review scores, right? And from a critical standpoint, they're fucking useless, right? From an audience standpoint, they become just as useless because a lot of times I'll be scrolling through something, right? And the audience will give the score a 0.
Yeah.
Nothing is a 0.
No.
Like, review scores are the most useless fucking things, and it's so frustrating because, like, anybody giving any property, whether it's a game or a movie, a 0, you should have your fucking account disabled.
Well, then you shouldn't be a reviewer.
Right, because you
have to be able to find there's something
is a 0.
right. Something was done okay within a game or a movie or a TV show. You could give it a 1.
Sure, but a lot of times, anything that lives from the 0 to 4 range, a lot of times the people that are giving it those scores, a lot of times, I'm not saying every time, are just being contrarian.
Of course.
And it's not helpful.
No.
Because it's not giving me an accurate representation of the property. You're just being an asshole.
Right. But that goes to, some of that goes to who's paying you and who's not.
Sure. To a degree. But, I miss when seeing something that was an 85 or a 9 out of 10 actually meant something.
Sure. Absolutely.
So,
I totally agree.
That's my cuff for this week.
Okay.
What do you got?
So mine is, and I think mine's going to lead into your movie because I think I know where you were going.
Okay.
So mine is, what the hell happened to merchandising?
We kind of covered this last week too,
right,
with even with like McDonald's toys and stuff too.
But Masters of the Universe has no merchandise for advertising. Masters of the Universe, as we know, was a toy line. I went to
1980s toy line.
I went to Walmart. There, I could not find a single piece of merchandise for Masters of the Universe, and I went to look for that specifically. Then I went to Kohl's.
Now, here's what's interesting: is I'm just now starting to see advertisement for Masters of the Universe toys.
Yeah.
Just now. So what they did was they gambled on the movie before they had the merchandise ready to go. Mm-hmm. And the only time in history that has ever worked was the original Star Wars when Kenner didn't have the toys ready.
Right.
But that doesn't work today.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, when you saw the demographic breakdown of who went to go see this movie, there was almost virtually no kids that went to go see it. And part of the reason is, and part of the reason why we all grew up loving Masters of the Universe is because how cool the toys were. And you loved, and all of a sudden you got the characters. And then the TV show came out after that, and you're like, awesome.
Right, that was the icing on the cake.
And it's like, if you don't have any attachment whatsoever to these characters, right, there's no, especially as we're just talking about this, modern audience, and we're going to use a younger demographic for the modern audience, they don't have a knowledge of who this is. You know what would have made it so that they could have seen how cool these characters are? Toys all over the goddamn place. I went to multiple stores and I could not find a single piece of Masters of the Universe merchandise.
That's crazy.
And we talked about, right, McDonald's or Burger King, the two, Wendy's, nobody
has a Happy Meal with Masters.
Denny's,
yeah,
and it's two meals,
right?
And that's it.
That's part of the that's part of the synergy, right? Is that you're not synergizing these properties in the way that you should.
This should have been in your face for a month prior to that movie coming out.
Absolutely.
And I just, and that's the way it used to be. And I'm like, I can't believe, And I went prior to the movie coming out. Now, I did not see the movie yet. I have not gone. But I went prior to the movie, and there's
Nothing.
zero.
It's a ghost town.
Zero merchandise for what they were hoping would be a blockbuster movie. What the hell happened to merchandising? I just don't know.
All right. So that's our off the cuff for the week. I don't know either, honestly. Yeah. Let's get into the watch list.
Okay.
What do you got?
So, I watched 2 movies.
Okay.
So, I watched the 3rd part of The Strangers.
Strangers Part 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe the worst trilogy ever made.
Yeah,
honestly, ever made.
I agree, because it's really funny, because the first one is good, right? It's not great. It's
the
good.
original
the
movie.
original, The Strangers, is good. Everything that's come out of the Strangers universe after that has been terrible.
But I mean,
because it's a one movie,
right?
You know, you can't go anywhere with it.
But it is so bad. Like, I don't. 3 of the worst movies of a trilogy, I think, has ever been made.
It is a terrible trilogy.
That is an absolute skip. Awful.
Yeah, that's
awful.
a skip.
The other thing I streamed, and I'm giving this a chef's kiss.
Oh my!
Spider-noir.
So I haven't watched it all. I caught the first couple episodes. I love it too. It's weird.
Nick Cage at his finest.
At his finest.
You have to watch it in black and white.
Yeah.
You have to watch it in black and white. You know
what I like, though? I like that they released both versions.
Yeah.
Because it gives you here's the thing. It's a good show.
Yes.
Watch it in black and white and then rewatch it in color.
Right.
You know what I mean? It gives you that rewatchability.
Right. But if you like noir movies, which we both do.
Yep.
It stays true to that.
Yep.
It's comic book enough, but it's not overly superhero.
No, it's not. There are quips, but there aren't a vomitous amount of quips.
No. And it's not it's played straight and over the top hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, it just like you wouldn't think it works, but it does work.
It is such a good series. One of the best Marvel. This is, to me, better than any Marvel Disney Plus show that's been made. You can sit there and say Loki or WandaVision.
Well, let me ask
Spider-Noir
you this, though.
is better.
Is Noir MA? Is it TV MA or is it TV 14?
I don't know for sure.
I'd be curious.
But I don't see why it would be MA, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably 14, right?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that one, but it's just... It is the best... I mean, the only thing that you could say maybe better is Daredevil on Netflix as far as TV shows go for Marvel.
Yeah, it's solid. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always said that Nick Cage is great if you have a director that knows how to handle him, and clearly these guys had a handle on it.
So, Spider-Noir, absolute catch.
Yeah, TV 14 for
watch.
Noir.
Yeah.
But, again, that just proves that you can make something for, that doesn't have to be down in the grit.
Right.
But it still works.
Yep. So those are my 2.
So I have 3.
Okay.
So the first one that I watched was Hokum.
Hokum, okay.
So Hokum is a horror movie starring Adam Scott.
Okay.
He goes to Ireland to kind of spread his parents' ashes, and there's a witch involved.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
I'm gonna say stream.
Okay.
I'm gonna say this is a stream it because it's really interesting because it kind of toggles that line between horror. There's a bit of campiness to it. There's a bit of a mystery in there. It's doing too much, but ultimately, like after it was over, I was like, oh yeah, that was pretty good.
Nice.
And it leaves you guessing at the end. It's like, oh, did all this really happen? Type of thing. So I would say give it a stream. It's pretty tight.
Nice.
So, give that one a watch. So the second one I watched was Scary Movie 6.
Oh, okay.
I would say skip.
Really?
Sort of. I have mixed feelings about it. It's basically just, if you like the first two Scary Movies with the Wayans brothers and everything, it's just more of that.
Yeah.
There are some funny parts. It felt very disjointed, though. And, if I would say it sits on the fence between skip and stream, right?
Okay.
Like if you want something real stupid, give it a stream. I wouldn't waste your money on the theater. Don't go to the theater to see this.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And then the third one that I watched is Masters of the
course.
Universe.
There it is.
And I got to tell you, it is 100% see it. Go to the theater.
Yeah.
Go to IMAX.
Yeah, I plan on catching this.
It is so fucking good.
Nice.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's everything you could have wanted out of a Masters of the... And it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work, right? And here's... Just to wrap it all into a fine little bow, you had a race swap with Man-at-Arms and Idris Elba.
Yep.
Doesn't fucking matter.
Sure.
Doesn't matter at all.
No.
Didn't even give it a second
because there's no
thought.
story there that would affect it.
Nope. Doesn't matter. Even Jared Leto was fucking great.
People said this is he finally found his calling.
Yeah,
like this is finally it for him.
Or hear his voice because his voice is totally modulated,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, if you hide him behind layers and layers of bullshit, yeah, he's awesome.
There it is.
It is awesome. The soundtrack is awesome. I mean, it is ripped out of the 80s.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There was a point where I was laughing so hard. I was laughing, and I haven't laughed in a movie.
Nice.
I didn't laugh like that at Scary Movie, I'll tell you that much.
Right.
I laughed hard.
Nice.
Okay,
nice.
There's a scene, that just, it hits. So I would say pony up your cash, go support them, and go see Masters of the Universe. So that's the watch list this week. We'll finish it up with the Pulse. So for this week, the Pulse question is, what makes you give up on a franchise? So we spent a lot of time talking about what studios think audiences want, but let's flip the question around. What's the fastest way for a franchise to lose you? Is it bad writing, too many sequels, change of characters, bad adaptation, too many politics in it, fan toxicity, or is it something else entirely? Let us know in the comments. All right, so that's the end of the episode.
Nice.
Bit of a longer one today, but there was, this is a big topic.
Yeah, exactly.
Jim, as always, what do you got going on?
Just getting the art out there. Stop by the socials, take a look at the art, leave a comment, leave a like. Love to chat with you.
All right, so that's the episode. You know where we're at. CatalystCrafting.com is the main website. Catalyst Creations NH is the Etsy store. Like us on socials. That really helps. And if there are any shows you want to see us at this summer, hit us up, let us know, and we'll see if we can make them happen. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.